Good evening, I'm Jim Axelrod. For 12 hours today, people in both Gaza and Israel had something they haven't seen in 19 days, a break from the shelling and shooting. Both sides honored a humanitarian ceasefire designed to give civilians a chance to bury their dead and examine the wreckage of their homes. But the quiet was short-lived. Tonight, Hamas fired at least 6 rockets and mortars into Israel, and Israel said it was prepared to respond. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who's been trying all week to negotiate a longer truce, headed back to Washington tonight without a deal to end the fighting that has claimed more than 1,000 lives in Gaza and 45 in Israel. We have 3 reports tonight, beginning with Barry Peterson in Gaza.
It was a day for the dead, their bodies removed from the rubble. And a day for the living. People who fled the shelling came back to salvage what they could, no matter how mundane. Mohammed Abu Halima was stunned when he saw his house today for the first time since the war started. 35 members of the family had lived here. Demolished. Damar. Everywhere, ruined remnants of their lives. Pots and pans, a baby's cradle, a bicycle, and something new added, the spent shells that had ripped the area apart. Do you feel that this war should go on, or do you think it should stop? This is a miserable situation, he said. I just want it to end. His brother Ali lived upstairs with his wife and 9 kids. The pre-dawn shelling punctured the roof without warning. The children were sleeping, he said. My wife and I just grabbed them in our arms and ran away. They now live at a UN school where there are so many other refugees that the family could only find room in the stairwell. And for all that, they insist they will start over. And another sign of resilience, look at the main market, where farmers brought fresh produce to an area that had been abandoned during the fighting. People hurried to take advantage of a day of peace. Once empty streets were so jammed today that even donkey carts got stuck. And here was resilience at its best, kids having fun. In a city that has echoed with the sounds of war for more than 2 weeks, today, if only for a few hours, there was the lovely sound of laughter. The ceasefire was a recess that didn't really solve any of the issues. Israel is still fighting to keep rockets from being fired at its cities. Hamas vows to battle on until the blockade is lifted against Gaza. It was a nice day, Jim, as long as it lasted.
Barry Peterson, who's in Gaza for us tonight. Barry, thank you.
Moscow condemns new European Union sanctions against Russia over what the EU calls Moscow's involvement in the crisis in Ukraine. Russia's foreign ministry said new EU sanctions targeting its intelligence chiefs risked ending all joint cooperation on security. Earlier, the European Union put asset freezes and travel bans on 15 more individuals and 18 entities. Among the new people were top Russian intelligence officials and pro-Russian leaders in eastern Ukraine. The bloc had been reluctant to adopt tougher economic sector measures backed by Washington, but since Malaysia Airways flight MH17's disaster, things have apparently changed. Brussels also accuses Moscow of playing a hand in the crisis in neighboring Ukraine. Russia, meanwhile, denies any involvement in the crisis.
Out of the big business of shoplifting. It's not just a problem for the stores, it's affecting you too. Tonight, we're undercover as police prepare to bring down one highly organized shoplifting ring and the woman they believe could be the key to it all. Here's ABC's Matt Gutman.
It is a $13 billion epidemic. Shoplifters across America are costing close to $35 million a day to retailers, and the numbers keep growing. As seen on these YouTube flash mob videos, many are brazen enough to steal anything and everything. But while shoplifting out in the open is one way to do it, down in Polk County, Florida, there's a much more sophisticated method.
All right, Todd, they're approaching the store right now.
What you are watching, investigators say, is an organized shoplifting ring in action. In this case, the suspect, Melinda Ford, a.k.a. Puffy, is about to hit the dressing room of a Bell's department store in Florida.
Right now what we're seeing is our main target in the store.
Last year, we were given access to an unfolding investigation to a crime that starts with a sleight of hand and ends up costing all of us big money. Cops tell us that Puffy is their prime suspect, They call her the Booster, and they believe she could be the key to bringing down a multi-layered Florida shoplifting ring.
We're going to be picking up another individual. We have one occupant and one suspect.
That's why Sergeant Jim Ostachek from the Polk County Sheriff's Office has spent nearly a month chasing Puffy as she moves from store to store.
All right, we're in hot pursuit right now.
Westbound Bruceby Downs, number 2 lane.
Westbound on I-4. I'm not exactly sure where she's going, but we're following.
Over the last 3 years, shoplifting has become a growing national problem. Stores mark up merchandise to offset the losses, and it'll cost your household roughly $400 a year.
It sounds like they're headed to a Bell's.
The woman driving Puffy around in that yellow Beetle?
All right, they're pulling in now.
They call her Pee-wee, and we're blurring her face because she's actually a police informant. Pee-wee has told the cops that Puffy's MO is to enter the fitting room with 2 of everything. And then, once inside, conceal one of each item under her street clothes.
She's exiting the store.
Pee-wee tells the cops that Puffy then hands the items over to a network of men and women she pays to return the goods to the store. We watched as Bell Security monitored what they say was one of those illegal returns going down.
All right, so she just returned the stolen stuff.
Police say suspected returners cashed the stolen goods in for store credits in the form of gift cards. They believe those gift cards will later turn up on popular online auction sites.
Seems like the gift cards are pretty much money, right?
Yes, those are kind of like, it's gold.
After weeks of following Puffy in and out of stores along a 90-mile stretch from Orlando all the way to Tampa, Sarge and his team are finally ready to arrest her. Investigators say if they can flip Puffy, they're betting they can round up the returners, the fencers, and bring down the whole booster ring. Bell's security team is in place.
Both subjects have entered the store.
They're inside the store, monitoring Puffy and the police informant Pee-wee on surveillance cameras, and radioing their movements to officers outside waiting in the parking lot.
Subjects are now exiting the store.
An unmarked police car is waiting.
Both subjects have entered the vehicle. Vehicle is moving.
As they exit the parking lot, the police pull up right behind them. Pee-wee, who's been wearing a wire for weeks now, fakes being terrified.
They coming. They're pulling me.
This particular Bell's is right across the street from their own sheriff's substation. So they pull over Puffy and Pee-wee right into the station's parking lot. Puffy is escorted inside, directly into an interrogation room. They need to turn Puffy because they believe, as the head of the ring, she's the only one who can lead them to everyone involved.
I want to get one thing straight with you, okay? Understand, if you're going to cooperate with us and we're going to help you, then you got to fully cooperate. And if you don't want to do that, you need to tell me now because I don't want to waste my time, you know what I'm saying?
Police say the rest of the suspected accomplices likely don't even know who each other are.
I want a name of every person you can set up a deal and sell this stuff to today.
After a few hours confronting her, police say Puffy finally seems to crack.
These guys have basically flipped Puffy, and they've managed to get her to call everybody in her virtual Rolodex, and she's going to go to them one by one, talk to them, try to sell them something, and these guys are going to bust all of them eventually.
Over the next 24 hours, Puffy works, and works well for the police.
He would be like the only person, but he don't have her phone number.
Methodically helping them set up and then round up her alleged accomplices. And as she sets off to bust them, she seems surprised that what she's been doing is considered a serious crime.
I never thought that what I did was this serious. It's very serious. It actually is an organized crime.
Puffy, who will later receive a 2-year prison term plus 10 years of probation, gets to work, helping to round up a dozen suspected returners.
We're picking up one of the other suspects right now. She's got a black shirt on, red pants.
That's coming right toward me.
These are the people Puffy claims she paid to return her stolen merchandise. Police say they have evidence that 33-year-old Erica is also one of them.
Hey, Paul, we're almost to you.
Right there. Don't grab me like that!
She would later plead guilty and was given 24 months of probation.
I don't want him in my face with these cameras. Act like I'm a stone cold criminal.
Police say Erica only made about $5 or $10 for each return.
Let's do it.
Next, the suspected fencers. They're the people who Puffy tells us buy those gift cards from her for about 50 cents on the dollar.
What I do?
You got a warrant for your arrest.
Police say one of Puffy's fencers also sells her boosted merchandise at a neighborhood store. So they send her in with dresses they've secretly marked.
I've been stealing all damn day. I'm gonna go back to the store.
Police have coached Puffy to tell Ray, aka Bubba, that the items are stolen.
6 address. All right, baby, I ain't gonna argue with you. It's stolen. Ain't no overhead over it for me.
The next day, the police raid this store.
Polk County Sheriff's Office search warrant.
And find most of that merchandise up for sale.
I didn't know it was stolen or nothing.
I want you to remember something, okay? Yeah. And I want you to keep in mind that your store is video and audio recorded.
Yeah. Once she told me whatever, I already know what's going on, so you got to be responsible for my actions.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
He was later convicted of dealing in stolen property and sentenced to 36 months in prison.
At any time, did you have any idea at all that we were following you or anything like that?
Nope. Never in a million years.
In the 3 weeks we followed them, the Polk County Sheriff's Office arrested Puffy and 16 of her suspected associates and were able to stop what they say is one of the largest organized retail crime rings operating in Central Florida.
As for the Israelis, among the obstacles to a longer-term ceasefire is a network of tunnels that extend underground across the border from Gaza. As Don Daly reports, the Israelis say the tunnels leave them wide open to attacks from Hamas, and they'll continue to target them.
Even today, during the ceasefire, the Israeli Defense Force continued to search for tunnels. So far, 31 have been found. The IDF describes them as sophisticated and capable of funneling armed Hamas militants across the border with Gaza. During a recent speech, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu alluded to terror plots Hamas captives revealed during interrogation and what was hidden in one of the tunnels. We found handcuffs and sedatives, he says. He described an underground infrastructure with fortifications, electricity, and cables designed to carry out large-scale attacks and kidnappings. One such plot involved hundreds of militants attacking Israeli farm communities. Can you confirm that there is a specific plot that's been uncovered?
There have been a number of specific plots that have been uncovered.
One of this scale?
One of massive scale.
Mark Regev is Netanyahu's spokesman.
The tunnels are designed to allow armed groups to pop out on our side of the frontier with explosives, with automatic weapons, with rocket-propelled grenades, with anti-tank weapons, and to enter our communities, to enter a kibbutz farm or a small city, and to murder, to cause mayhem, to terrorize.
How long have you lived here?
For almost 50 years.
50 years. Mika Ben Hillel's home in kibbutz Nir Am is less than 300 yards from the border. Last week he was asleep when he heard gunfire.
10 terrorists went through a tunnel which they had dug and popped up about 200 meters from the border. Our intelligence spotted their entrance and the helicopter shot all of them. I mean, no country would allow such a situation.
Some of the tunnels are large enough to drive a truck through. The network, which also extends under Gaza City, was described by a former head of Israel's military intelligence as like the streets of New York City underground.
The shelling tonight followed a meeting of diplomats in Paris that failed to push the two sides to a longer truce. Just before leaving Paris, Secretary of State Kerry acknowledged the degree of difficulty in sustaining a ceasefire.
Each side has powerful feelings about the history and why they're where they are. And what we're going to work at is how do we break through that so that the needs are met and we have an ability to provide security for Israel and a future, economic and social and otherwise, development for the Palestinians. That's what this is about.
Margaret Brennan is our State Department correspondent. She's traveling with Secretary Kerry and joins us now from Paris. Margaret, after a week of rather intense negotiations, where do things stand right now in terms of a long-term diplomatic solution?
Well, Jim, Kerry's returning to Washington without a ceasefire and no immediate plans to return to the Middle East. He says a broader framework is in place for when both sides are willing to stop firing at one another. But after meetings today with the Turkish and Qatari foreign ministers who are negotiating on behalf of Hamas, both of them said they'd be willing for more pauses in fighting, but no clear pledges of anything more than these temporary halts at this point. Hamas is very skeptical because they've seen past ceasefires fall apart. Promises of allowing more freedom of movement for Palestinians were not followed through on. Israel, for its part, rejected that offer of a 7-day truce, in part because it said it's not done with its military operation. They want to blow up more of those tunnels they accuse Hamas of using to smuggle in weapons. So Kerry's continuing to put pressure on both parties, but nothing in hand quite yet.
Let me ask you about another major development involving the State Department. The embassy in Libya, in Tripoli, shut down today. Embassy personnel evacuated. Any direct threat there?
No direct threat to U.S. diplomats or to the U.S. Embassy, but Secretary Kerry said it's the proximity of what he called freewheeling militias nearby the U.S. Embassy that led to this decision. This country has been on the brink of civil war for some time, and the Obama administration is very concerned given that fatal attack on the U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi 2 years ago that killed 4 Americans. So they decided to move all diplomats across land because of fighting at the airport. They weren't allowed to fly out. Kerry said, though, he promises the diplomats will return to Libya once the security situation allows for it.
Margaret Brennan with a very busy day on the diplomatic beat. Thank you, Margaret. The violence in eastern Ukraine is keeping investigators away from the crash scene. Even so, there is word tonight of what the plane's black boxes are revealing. Charlie D'Agata is in the region tonight.
The black boxes that were handed over intact from Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 have begun to provide vital clues of what brought the aircraft down, killing all 298 people on board. A European investigator told CBS News today that unreleased data shows massive explosive decompression. That's consistent with the plane's fuselage having been penetrated multiple times by shrapnel from a missile explosion. It did what it was designed to do, we were told, bring down airplanes. Jerzy and Angela Dzinski's 25-year-old daughter Fatima was one of those on board. They came from Australia and crossed rebel-held territory to search the wreckage-strewn fields to find her.
She was for peace. She is for peace, and she will be forever for peace.
Fierce fighting today has stopped teams of investigators from getting any closer to the scene of the crash. Ukrainian military officials said their forces have advanced to the outskirts of the rebel-held city of Donetsk. The war that brought the plane out of the sky above it is still raging on the ground below. This video is thought to show a barrage of heavy weapons fired from the Russian side of the border into Ukraine. It lasts a good 30 minutes. It suggests the Russians are not only reinforcing Ukrainian separatist fighters with firepower, they're supporting them with an influx of heavy artillery, including the kinds of surface-to-air missiles suspected of downing the Malaysian passenger plane. The fighting has intensified over the past 24 hours, especially to the north of the city of Donetsk, a city of 1 million people, where it seems that government forces are trying to choke off supply routes to rebels who are inside the city itself. It's making things far more complicated here, making it more dangerous and difficult for investigators to reach the scene of the wreckage.
9 days now since that crash. Charlie D'Agata, thank you.
We take this moment in silence. Free from suffering. May they be.
That
Graffiti militants in northern Syria have reportedly killed at least 85 army troops. A London-based Syrian opposition organization said most of the soldiers were summarily executed by ISIL militants following an attack on their base in Raqqa province. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the fate of around 200 other soldiers remains unknown. The observatory also said nearly 30 militants were killed in clashes with Syrian forces. Insurgent groups fighting the Syrian government have committed numerous mass executions during the 3-year-long conflict.
We have been on the crash sites for a few hours already. With us we have some forensic experts from the Netherlands, and we also have some Australians with us. The investigators are going over that wide area there. There's huge pieces of wreckage there. And then also in the wooded area over there is what so far we have seen as the biggest piece of recognizable wreckage.
There's a 6-figure reward being offered in Philadelphia tonight for information in a tragic carjacking case. Yesterday morning, 2 men carjacked an SUV and then sped right into a group of children. 3 of the kids were killed. And as Vanita Nair reports, the carjackers are still on the run.
There's a makeshift memorial at the crash site where the kids were hit, and hour by hour, it keeps growing. Just like the reward to find the 2 men responsible. It started off at $20,000, and now it's more than $100,000. Philadelphia Police Captain James Clark.
I've been in the homicide unit 6 years. This is one of the most saddest cases that I've come across.
The accident happened Friday morning at this intersection where the family had a fruit stand. About a mile away, 2 suspects carjacked a real estate agent and forced her into her vehicle at gunpoint. Detectives think they were speeding when the SUV blew a tire, jumped the curb, and hit the family as well as a neighbor. 10-year-old Thomas Reed died at the scene. His 15-year-old sister, Kiera Williams, and 7-year-old brother, Terrence Moore, died at the hospital. This is Terrence's aunt and father.
Taking innocent people's lives, that's my son. You took him away from you. Turn yourself in, dog. Whoever y'all is, turn yourself in.
For a city its size, Philadelphia still ranks number 5 on the list for the highest crime rate, even though the homicide rate has fallen 43% since 2007. Tonight, there's a vigil in remembrance of the children with the hope the suspects will do the right thing.
Have a heart and turn yourself in.
The mayor says the whole city is now praying for this family.
We close tonight with the story of an uncommon baseball pitcher. Throwing a 90-mile-an-hour fastball with one arm makes you something special. But how about bringing that kind of heat with both? Ryan Perez is a natural righty.
Eating cereal, cutting something right-handed, brushing my teeth right-handed.
But growing up, his father knew his son, the aspiring pitcher, would have an advantage if he learned to throw with his left arm as well.
I would grab something right-handed, try to throw it right-handed, but he would stop. No. Put it in your left, throw it with your left.
His dad was onto something.
It's good, that dropped a little bit.
Perez became an all-state pitcher in Illinois. And now, heading into his junior year at Judson University, he has an arsenal of pitches he can throw with either arm.
Four-seam fastball both ways, changeup both ways, curve and slider both ways.
Number 7, Ryan Perez.
This summer, Perez is wearing number 7 for the Hyannis Harbor Hawks in the Cape Cod League, a traditional training ground for future major leaguers like Jacoby Ellsbury and Evan Longoria. Although there's nothing traditional about Ryan Perez. Take his 6-fingered glove he can wear on either hand.
There's 2 thumbs over here and here. When other people try to play catch with it and they say it's like almost impossible, but it just takes time just like anything else.
I mean, this is a very unique situation when a boy can throw 90, 91, 92 with both arms.
Assistant coach Ron Polk has been in baseball for 49 years.
I've seen some guys fool around with throwing both left and right, but generally fooling around. Never did it in a ball game, and I'll probably go another 49 years in coaching and never see it again.
Ryan Perez may be a baseball novelty, but his dreams are the same as everyone else's. He's out. Who's ever picked up a ball with either arm.
I really want to get drafted. Hopefully I go to the major leagues. and then work my way up from there.
And his dream would certainly seem to be alive. Ryan Perez was selected to the annual Cape Cod League All-Star Game that'll be played tomorrow.
We're protesting against the military thing that's going in Gaza. We think there's always a chance for a diplomatic solution and not a violent solution. We cry for the killing for the children in Gaza. We cry for the soldiers here that are killing. I see it for nothing because it feels like something that repeats itself.
I think that in order for all of us here in Israel and in Palestine to be safe, we really need something else. Without the siege, without the occupation, with coexistence.
Here because we want the whole world to know that Putin, Russian president, kills people. He kills people in Ukraine. He kills people of other countries in that plane. That's why we want to say Russian people who come to Ukraine that we love them, we love Russian people, but we hate their leader Putin.
Чим невероятнее ложь, тем быстрее в нее поверят. Це сказав
The more unbelievable the lie, the easier it is to believe. And Putin reminds us of these words of Goebbels. We take information from different sources, Ukrainians, Russians, and international as well. All of them have a different news angle. And we just want to urge the Russians to not only take news from the Russian TV.
Ми хочемо їм сьогодні роздати листівки і сказати, щоб вони дивилися новини з різних джерел.
Allegations of police brutality caught on camera in New York and Los Angeles this month have raised questions about officer training. But plenty of police departments say the full story is not always told. And as Terry Okita reports, they're responding with some high-tech tools.
Policing in the digital age means every moment, every incident can be caught on camera, and sometimes followed by accusations of excessive use of force. But now, hundreds of police departments are exploring whether their own cameras might create a more complete picture of a scene.
Body cams are going to become the norm?
Yes. This is something that's changing the face of law enforcement.
Rialto, California Police Chief Tony Farrar is the first in the country to outfit all 75 beat cops with body cameras, worn on lapels or eyeglasses. Others are now looking at Rialto as a test case for their own department-wide programs.
People tend to behave a little bit better when they know they're on camera.
Farrar says the year before body cameras went on officers, there were 24 complaints of excessive force. The next year, it dropped to 3. Sergeant Chris Heiss.
Everyone acts better. I think it teaches our police officers and our citizens to treat each other more respectfully.
Who's the driver of the white truck? Who all was in the vehicle with you?
Heiss says police body cams help tell the whole story, start to finish.
The thing of the past is the 3-second cell phone clip from, John Doe that put in and said, this is what the police officers did. Now we'll show you 3.5, 4 minutes of the contact prior to.
Should we fear this technology or embrace it?
Embrace it with a qualification.
The ACLU's Peter Biebring says his organization, which normally opposes surveillance of citizens, endorses the body cameras, and not just in Rialto.
A picture's worth 1,000 words and video many more. Video from the perspective of the officer is going to be an invaluable tool in determining why an officer acted the way he or she did and whether he or she acted appropriately.
Case in point, when this driver allegedly ran a stop sign,
How you doing, sir?
What should have been a routine stop escalated. Both the police and the man's son had cameras rolling.
Let me explain to you something.
Bro, you can't explain it to that videotape, bro, because my kids saw what you did. You was out of line on me. And you gotta
everything,
let me get my stuff out
everything that I've done is on video right here on me.
But that was out of line.
For good or bad, the evidence will be there for all to see.
Everything that I've done is on video.